For that, we bring in our guy Kevin Sweeney from Sports Illustrated. Kev, it's been a lot of fun talking Cuse hoops for the last few months. We're all in great moods here, so we need some upbeat. We need to talk about the good teams in the country. If you can help us out with that here a little bit.
That's what I do. I appreciate you guys having me.
All right, so we saw Duke in here in the Dome a few weeks ago, and Cooper Flagg was fine in that game, and Duke was just so good and balanced. They absolutely dominated. It wasn't remotely a contest. They're clearly the class of the ACC. Like, are they? Is it them and all these SEC teams? What are you looking at right now when you're looking, top echelon national picture at this moment?
Yeah, look, I think that, for most of the season, I would have told you that Duke and Auburn had sort of separated themselves. And I still think that's probably true. I think Auburn's probably the most complete team in the country. Their size, their physicality, their shooting, their experience. Duke probably the most talented team in the country to have three top 7 or 8 picks in the draft that all play well together, that all play hard, that have role players around them. But I do think a couple of teams here recently have emerged into that conversation. Florida, who's now, right nip and tuck with Auburn in the SEC race, and blew out Auburn. Really handled them for 40 minutes a week and a half ago. I also think Houston from the Big 12 would be the one team outside that loaded SEC that could maybe make some noise. They're rolling. I'll give you a stat real quick. Their net rating on KenPom, Houston's, it is higher than 14 of the last 15 national champions. Whoa. That's how good the top of the sport is. That Houston, number 3 in KenPom, is there right now.
Yeah, and it feels like obviously that means that the teams above them are higher than the national champions as well. When you're looking at Auburn and Duke and like this list of SEC teams, explain this SEC to us. Here at Syracuse, we watched those Big East years back 15 years-ish ago, whatever year it was, when they got 11 teams in the tournament and were, stacked top to bottom. When you take, like, this year's SEC, does it compare to that? Is it better? What's the frame of reference for this year's SEC?
Yeah, I think it's very comparable to that. I think it's always hard to compare across eras because, especially now with the portal and everything, like the way you build rosters is so different. It's hard for me to say, the Big East then is better than this now, whatever. But I do think it's historic what the SEC has accomplished. Look, I think over time in college basketball history, the league that's dominating at that moment, you look up and you say, man, they've got several Hall of Fame coaches on the sideline, and that was true of the Big East at one point. Mm-hmm. That was true of the ACC at one point, and right now I think it's true of the SEC with Rick Barnes and Nate Oates and Bruce Pearl and John Calipari and these rising superstars like Todd Golden that have really emerged here lately. So, I just think that the coaching talent throughout the league is strong. The resources to build rosters is elite. They have plenty of money, and they've spent it wisely.
I guess that's really the question here. Is it, if you're ranking order of importance of what is leading the way for the SEC right now, yeah, the coaching list is impressive. Is it that? Is it the NIL? What do you put number one on that list for why they're so good right now?
I'd probably lean coaches because I think coaches drive money, right? There's money to be had in a lot of places once you're winning and fired up. I mean, St. John's is raising money hand over fist right now for its program because they're winning, right? Like, I think it started with we have schools that have tons of money in their budgets because of football. Let's go out and make really high-level basketball hires, give them all the resources they need to win, and then they've become self-sustaining over time because you're winning, and these guys are all engaging personalities. I mean, Nate Oates and Bruce Pearl are some of the best, dynamic personalities in the sport, and they've brought that to places that didn't necessarily care about basketball before.
You look at Bruce for certain. He is well aware of the power of ESPN, especially after having worked there in between his last 2 stops. You can't turn them on without seeing him on there, and he doesn't work there anymore. But he gets it, and it certainly puts Auburn front and center. And yeah, no surprise, right? Why they're getting guys in the portal, and they've got money to do it, and why he's built that. It all goes into it. Feels like what is a years long master plan put out there by him.
100%, and I think. The other thing that's really helped Bruce is, he's always been able to sort of sell ice to Eskimos and really engage people. But I think over the last couple of years, they've been equipped with the resources to keep guys around. for multiple years. And, this is a unique group because there isn't that surefire NBA prospect. Janai Broom will be drafted probably in the early second round, but this is not a group of one-and-done talent. This is guys that have been in college for a while and have become a really elite team together. And that is a cool thing in this day and age.
And that's where, you look at the UConn teams, right, the last couple of years, and yeah, they've had lottery picks, but it's also, portal guys and guys that have been there a few years. You need all of it, right, in this day and age. You're not doing it just on the backs of freshmen or just on the backs of development anymore. If you don't, it seems like if you don't have all of the pieces these days, you can't pigeonhole yourself in one of these corners and succeed anymore.
Yeah, I think you have to build it in a variety of ways. I think you need the talent of NBA prospects, but you need the guys who've been around college basketball. You need guys that understand their roles. I think so much in recruiting, the main question was, is this guy good enough to play here? And I think the new question in recruiting is this guy worth what we're going to have to pay him, and does he fit what we do? And I think the elite coaches right now are doing a great job of answering those two questions. And Bruce would certainly be one of them. Dan Hurley would be certainly one of them as well.
Kevin Sweeney, Sports Illustrated, with us. We're talking some college hoops. So that's the SEC right now. We obviously look a lot at the ACC. We spend all our days talking Q's here. And you talk coaches. I mean, obviously John Shire's doing a great job replacing Coach K. But Coach K is gone. Roy Williams is gone. Tony Bennett is gone. Jim Larinaga is gone. Jim Boeheim is gone. Leonard Hamilton's going to be gone at the end of the season. Is it for the ACC as simple as getting the right people in place of those people, or are we looking at the money gap now between the ACC and the SEC? Is there going to be a gap here that's going to be harder and harder in your mind to overcome as the years go by?
Yeah, look, I think you're working in a headwind of sorts. You got to work through the financial aspect. I think the stability aspect. Now, the hope would be that the ACC is in a more stable place with some of the more recent reporting on realignment and things like that. But I think there has been a feeling throughout the sport that if you can get to the SEC or the Big Ten, you take it, because those tickets vanish pretty quickly. But I think most of the ACC's problems can be solved with high-level coaches and high-level investment, and whether that investment is at the school level, whether it's from donors, whether it's built up because the coach you hire is highly connected to money. Obviously, you need a baseline level of dollars to compete. But I think ACC programs have the money to be good at basketball. They just haven't necessarily had the right coaches. And I think there's also just been sort of the natural transition period at a lot of these places after you lose a legendary coach. It's not easy necessarily to just flip the switch and have the guy for another decade locked in.
All right, how important does that make this offseason for this league when you look at, Miami's open, Florida State's going to be open. I presume Virginia's going to be making a hire and maybe more. When you look at that's rare to have that much turnover in a major league in 1 year. How important does that make this offseason for this league?
Yeah, I think it's essential that these guys get it right, and whether that's experienced names, more up-and-comers. I think there's the perception that the SEC did it with all these big-name coaches. But a lot of those, schools made stars. Nate Oates was at Buffalo. You guys know it well. He was a great coach, and people knew he had a chance. But it was a shock when he got Alabama, of all places, as a job. Or Todd Golden at Florida had never won a tournament game at San Francisco, and comes and there's under 40 rolling into the SEC, and here he comes. So, I think these hires are critical. I think obviously getting Louisville and North Carolina back on the right track is critical. Louisville seems to be in that direction. We'll see see what happens with Carolina. I think that's been a roller coaster here for the last 4 years or so. So I think the best programs to be good in the league, and this is an opportunity for a bunch of the top programs in the league to restart and get on the right path.
Yeah, we just saw Hubert Davis and the Heels in here on Saturday. How firm is the footing in your mind that Hubert's on right now?
It's definitely softening. I think this spring he's likely fine unless something changes pretty drastically down the stretch, and that could, if they fall off a cliff down the stretch, that could get interesting in a hurry. But at the same time, I think the expectation he's got one more year, and then next year he'll enter the year on the hot seat and have to win.
All right, so we'll see how that goes as we got Kevin Sweeney, Sports Illustrated, with us. On Duke here, you talk about melding different things. They've hit the portal. They've got veterans that have been there longer than maybe you would have thought, and guys like Tyrese Proctor and whatnot. And then you got Cooper Flag. When we saw him a couple weeks ago, like, he was fine, he was good, but he didn't have one of his, like, oh my God, look at this guy kind of games, and it really wasn't necessary. Is he the best player in the country in your mind this year? I know he's going to go number one in the draft, but, like, is he the best guy, or is there somebody else you look at that you're like, I think he's as good or better than Flag?
I'd have a hard time differentiating between Johni Broome at Auburn and Cooper. The one thing I'll say with Flag is I feel like his impact on every possession in the game, even when he's not scoring it at an elite level, is really impactful. Like, it's different than guys you've seen over the years. It's different than pretty much anyone I've watched. I remember the first time I watched him play a 16U game at the Peach Jam in AAU summer, and watching him block shots and get steals and guard the ball, guard all 5 positions, pass, rebound, shoot, create for others. I mean, he does everything, and I think that's what's so rare about him. I think he's done it with an intensity and a motor that's been really fun to watch, and certainly has earned his place in the conversation for National Player of the Year. And I think Auburn, with what Broome has accomplished and how much better Auburn has been than any Auburn team in history, I think certainly has a say in that race as well. But, 2 really strong candidates, no question.
Yeah, how crazy is it, too, in this age of veterans and, fifth-year guys and all this, that, Cooper's been 18 for 2 months. Like, I think that's maybe lost in the sauce a bit in what he's doing this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's very shocking, and it's very rare. The track record with these guys who've reclassified to come to college earlier is pretty poor in general. Mm-hmm. And for him, a legit young guy, like, there's some reclass guys who, basically joined the class they always should have been in and had, pushed themselves back earlier in high school. He is very young for college basketball and dominating at a level very few have. It's very impressive.
Yeah, and certainly on route to being the top pick in the NBA draft here this offseason. All right, Kev, your view of Syracuse. It's obviously been a rocky road this season. The Horns not in the national spotlight nearly as much as we are used to around here. What is your sense of what you're seeing from Red Autry's second year?
Yeah, I think some concerning signs. You guys don't need me to tell you that. Obviously, the Miami loss was concerning. Maybe not the biggest deal in the world given where they are, but I think those games are measuring sticks, and right now Syracuse doesn't measure up. I think it's going to take a pretty substantial rebuild this spring. Now, the beauty of this day and age is you can do that, and you can flip it quick. I mean, you can highlight Missouri last year that went 0-18 in the league, and this year is on its way maybe to a top 4 seed in the tournament. So, you can flip it quick if you get it right. But I can't say I feel overly confident in the direction of the program the way the first 2 years have gone under Red.
When you look at it, you mentioned Missouri, and obviously we saw what Louisville did this year in their first year with the new coach and moving on from Kenny Payne. Like, how much is that such a crapshoot each offseason that it's hard to predict? Or what do you look at with these new coaching staffs for, like, indicators of, like, all right, they're on the right path or they're not on the right path, other than, the obvious of wins and losses?
Yeah, look, I think it's hard, as you said, because it doesn't take a lot to totally derail yourself. Like, I think of Missouri last year. It was a full-scale failure, but it was really, you could highlight 2 or 3 mistakes in the portal or roster management that put them on the path, and guys that they expected to do better that weren't, and things like that. So, it doesn't take a ton to flip it. I think, big picture, seeing the programs that do a really good job and are ahead of the curve in roster management, that are prepared when the portal opens, that are proactive rather than reactive, the programs that have proven that they can still develop players, that can retain players. Like, I give Missouri a lot of credit. They were bad last year, and they gave guys minutes that maybe you wouldn't have expected for young players, and they all came back and wanted to be a part of it. Now, it helps Missouri as well. Resource, they have a lot of money in NIL, but I think being able to retain guys who've been through those wars and level it up in year 2 in the program or year 3 in the program is critical. And I think that was a vote of confidence to me and Dennis Gates that guys still believed in what he was selling. All
right, we talk so much of this big picture stuff these days in college sports. How about the actual games? What games you got circled this week? What are you going to be watching?
This weekend, obviously pumped up for that Duke-Illinois game. Illinois, sort of in the dumps here lately, but still a very talented team and one of the most talented teams Duke has seen in some time. So how they navigate that will be interesting. Purdue, Michigan State tonight is a monster. We'll be locked in there as well. And Alabama, Missouri tomorrow night at Mizzou, a great example of how they flipped it. Playing a really good Alabama team tomorrow night.
All right, good stuff. We'll be locked in on that as we get closer and closer to March, which still holds that great appeal, regardless of what's going on in the greater college basketball sporting world. All right, Kev, thanks as always for the time. I'm sure we'll catch up again soon, but thanks, buddy.
Thanks, sir.
All right, there he is, our guy Kevin Sweeney. Check him out, Sports Illustrated, on the Twitter, the X, at CBP_Central. That's college basketball Central. It was good to check in with Kevin for the national view.